Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I want to thank the Times of India inviting me to this very interesting event. I think that the world is at a crossroads. This title of the conference is Uncertainty. The reason I think is that we feel the world is different. And I think there's a reason for that. And you hear opinions that tell you that, okay, we have a few bumps along the way. Over time, it's business as usual. But I think the future is very different. In my view, the global economic order that was established 70 years ago is dying. But the new world order has not been set up. And we are in this in-between period, and there will be a lot of uncertainties. And you will hear politicians saying all kinds of crazy things. Donald Trump is not just because of Donald Trump. It reflects a historical force. And many, many people like Donald Trump will rise. I think the key force in between periods is globalization. And there will be a lot of uncertainty. Is unquestionably positive for developing countries because it's a rising tide lifting all the boats. When poor countries trade with the rich countries, the pie becomes bigger and everybody inside goes up. Just some goes up more, some goes up less. But in rich countries, a lot of people go down, some people go up. Okay, there are losers, there are winners. And the winners are obviously, you should look at all these stock prices are very high. Like Donald Trump. Anybody who owns something that developing countries want will become very wealthy. If you have a brand, you have intellectual properties that developing countries need, you become very wealthy. But if you are doing something that the people in developing countries can do, you get pulled down. So this is the reason why wages have not risen for a long, long time in the West. And a lot of people will see wages going down. In this average, a lot of people see these wages going down. And some countries don't have the right mechanism to look after the losers in globalization. I think most countries in the West don't have the right strategy. Only countries like Germany and Japan that have a strong social contract where people who work for corporations expect it to be taken care of. The companies do not maximize profits only. They look at their employees. These countries are stable. While the countries that are purely look at profits and not just profits, short-term profits, these countries are in a lot of trouble. Okay, so and these countries have made things worse by the wrong strategy of dealing with the pressure from globalization. What you have heard from all these famous economists in the West is monetary stimulus. Whenever the economy is a little bit trouble, they say, well, let's print the money. That leads to what? That leads to you basically make the same house worth more. Then the people who do not earn enough income can borrow money to pay for a good time. You basically digging a deep hole for the poor people. That's been going on for a long time for developing countries. And on top of that, there's this zero-sum bubble. Basically, the stock price goes up, the stock price goes down. Some smart people know when to get in, when to get out. But most people lose out. So they become poor. A lot of people go down. So they are more indebted. Some people go up. They have less wealth. Okay, and they have less income. That's the situation. Actually, is the situation for most people in a lot of countries. So I think unless we see a major change in economic strategy in the West, like shifting towards a German model or Japanese model, a corporation cannot maximize profit only. It has to look at the overall economic, social impact, look at the impact on employees. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that you will have political backlash against the globalization, like we have seen in the UK and in the United States, and the doors will close. By closing the door, you lock in the companies inside your countries to reduce their freedom. That's a substitute for a social contract. So that process is underway. It's not like you slam the door, close the door quickly. It's a gradual process. The West will become less and less open. And the emerging economists that we're looking at selling to the West to develop the economies, that strategy is not going to be effective anymore. So this is something I've been writing about for a long time, particularly in the context of China. Japan started this export-invest model. Basically, export-invest model is very easy to understand. You invest, you build a factory, you export to rich countries, you get money, you build another factory. And this process is government directed. And because with pure market mechanism, if you sell to somebody, a factory has income, that income will get distributed and become consumption. Okay? So that is a slower growth model. But the fast growth model is that you don't consume. You make money, you build another factory. And you keep doing that. You keep doing that until your wealth is the same as the other countries. Then you maybe become a consumer economy. So when Japan slowed down in 1992, when the property market peaked, and the income in Japan was already over $30,000 US, similar to that in the West. But that model can work for you all the way to the end, only if your population is relatively small to that in the rich countries. So they do not feel the impact as much. But in the case of China and later for India, the issue is size. China's population is over 10 times of Japan's. And in China, 800 million people are working. A lot more than all the people working in the West. It's really difficult for 800 million people in China just to work to produce goods and sell to 300 million Americans or 300 million Europeans. It's very difficult to keep asking them to consume. They've been doing that with borrowed money for a long time. Then in 2008, the financial crisis happened. I wrote many articles arguing that it was China's customers who went bankrupt. So this is why China needed to change its economic model. And if you do not change your economic model, what do? These people, you look at Americans, I think, really, the global economic order in the last 70 years was based on American demand. Everybody's selling into the United States. But the United States only got 300 million people. So the Americans have become really overconsumed. The model the United States has had is that you sell me something, I print some US dollars for you. You take the US dollars and you think that you have got your money. And because the United States is a superpower, and so the dollar has credibility. So these dollars become circulating in the rest of the world. For the United States, it's been a free ride in some ways. But this free ride has a lot of problems. It's based on overconsumption. Americans, every Christmas, they buy Christmas trees, all the gifts. And they buy the same thing every year. Then afterwards, what do? They put all the stuff in the basement. So in the new year, they buy the same thing. They put the stuff in the basement. A few years later, the basement is full. What do? They build another basement. And Americans are very good at marketing. So you see on TV, they keep selling things. So Americans are deep in debt. So this is why this model in the United States politically is coming to an end. Now you go to the Middle West. We have a new political alliance in the United States. The Western industrial states teamed up with the Southern states to vote for the Republican Party. And in terms of electoral college votes, they will win presidential election all the time. So people who think that Donald Trump is one-off, you'll be disappointed. Because the people in the Midwest, they used to work in factories, having a job with $30 per hour with benefits. Now they work for Starbucks, $10 an hour with no benefits. And then the government says unemployment is down to 4.5%. It's very low. But it's a different job, you see. They have the guy is working at Starbucks. And the situation is going to only become worse because they've been talking about blue-collar workers, factory jobs. Now, the next wave is white-collar jobs. In emerging economies, you look at China, India, graduating millions and millions of people out of colleges. Now, I think that the United States education is good at the graduate school level. They still have the best research universities in the world. But in terms of college education, or even primary education, the United States is not as good as in many developing countries. So it's very difficult to see how they can compete. You know, China is graduating 6 million people out of colleges every year. And they make $500 a month. And they work a lot longer hours than Americans. So Donald Trump is going to block immigration, is going to have border taxes. But how are you going to stop this white-collar job globalization? Because it's just a click away. It's very difficult to really stop that. So this is where I think the political turmoil we're seeing in the West will continue. The globalization will be slowed down, but in some areas you cannot stop it. And any economic pickup is temporary. You can stimulate the economy with some infrastructure spending, and the economy will grow at 2.5%, but it's not real. It will come back. So the West will stagnate for a long, long time. I do not see how this is sustainable. So for India, for China, I've been talking about this story for a long time. I think the political leaders still do not want to change. They don't want to hang on to the world they saw. It really worked. Americans keep buying this wonderful world, you know. So Americans not buying anymore, but it's temporary, right? They will come back. So, but this is really, really naive. This is really naive. These people, they lost their jobs. Now they make $10 an hour. They are deep in debt. How are you going to expect those guys to buy more from you? You have to give them money to buy from you, right? If you do that, it's okay. They take your money, buy your stuff, but you never see your money back again. So I'm not sure that works for emerging economies. So the export model, the old export model is that you export to rich countries. That model is dead. You have to do something different. Yeah. Now I think there are two aspects to what we need to do. One is emerging economies need to form a free trade bloc. Because there's less pressure among emerging economies in terms of free trade because their cost levels are about the same. So there's less pressure. There's more more justification for free trade. The other is that the economic model of Japanese model, building more and more factories, not consuming, that model is not sustainable. You got to have a balance. Yeah, this is where I think that I've been saying about China, the change China needs to make. You keep the narrative about China has slowed down. The narrative about China is that the slowdown is due to change of an economic model, which unfortunately is not a fact. China's state investment continues to rise faster than the economy. Anytime Chinese economy picks up, it's due to state investment. And personal disposable income is still rising slower than GDP. So China's economic model is becoming more and more out of balance, not becoming more balanced. So that is the direction is wrong. China's economic development there are very unique features. It's not just the Japanese, it's not an entirely Japanese model. China's export model is based on government fixing government infrastructure investment and foreign direct investment to generate exports. Now, the economy we see in China today is different from Japan's because after 40 years of economic development, China does not have many global beating companies. While in the 1980s, Japan had top 10 global companies, most competitive companies, most were Japanese. The reason is because China has gone down the path of OEM model, working for multinational companies. So the products that China makes are not branded or designed by Chinese companies. They're just in the production side. That model has its advantages because it's very fast. Yeah, all the multinational companies are very happy to pass all the stuff to you, and they make most of the money. Like you look at Apple. Apple doesn't make anything. Apple is like a Nike shoe company that doesn't make anything. But the profit margin is 50%. Yeah, most of the profits in the mobile phone business go to Apple. And all these other mobile phone companies in China, they make very little money. They basically, it's zero thing margin, but Apple's got all their money. So that model works very well for U.S. Or other companies in the world. And but in the case of China, the political dynamic was for maximizing employment. So it's okay. We let them have the high value added stuff, but we just want to have jobs. So that was the rationale then. But now China has a labor shortage. And you still hear the old story about China that we must grow, we need to create jobs, that's for political stability. But China's labor force is actually shrinking. So this old narrative about China must grow at a certain level to create jobs, that's gone. So the other part, this part of the head of the value chain is not in China. Has a lot to do with China's per capita income. Now it's only $8,000. While Japan, when it peaked, it was over $30,000. But the high value added stuff is not in China. So your currency cannot reflect the high value added stuff. Your currency is only reflecting the production part. That's why the exchange rate is low. So it's low. So that's why the $8,000 per capita income. So there are consequences with the OEM model. And that's something that India needs to think about. Right? How do you go down that path? China had from 1999 to 2011, China's nominal GDP, US dollar GDP, was rising at 19% per annum. And exports were rising at 20% per annum. So that stretch of hyper growth was as good or better than all the other East Asian countries, what other East Asian countries experienced. But still today, we are at $8,000. So these are the consequences with of the economic development model. The other part is China's this infrastructure development. That's where something that unparalleled. That's definitely a success story. China in the 1990s got it happened. There are many dimensions to that. It's not just one thing that China joined the WTO. There are many things. China revived the college education system after the Cultural Revolution. That was 1977, 78. Then all the students at that time went into engineering. Okay? Then they graduated. Then there was a 10-year period for these people to practice. But they were very young. They did not have senior people teaching them. They were basically learning by doing these projects. By the mid-1990s, these became very seasoned engineers. So China had the capability to do things. And together with the central government at that time, decided to join the WTO, attract foreign capital, mobilize resources to build infrastructure. Those things came together, then China's infrastructure development really took off. In 1998, when China started building the highway system, started from zero. And a classmate of mine who happened to be the designer of the system, copied after the American system. All the markings in China, like A5, A10, is similar to the American interstate highway system. At that time, it was a dream. And it started by doing 2,000 kilometers. Then it ramped up to 10,000. So it's been, 18 years. China's highway system is now 130,000 kilometers, bigger than the United States system. It's like about 100,000 kilometers. And China is still building 10,000 kilometers every year. So this is where China is overdoing it. It's because there's too much of a good thing. That's the China story. Too much of a good thing in the sense that it's becoming negative. That highway is like that. It's easy to see from the highway example why China's economy, a major reason why China's economy is slowing down. 10 years ago, it took like $20 million to build a kilometer of highway. Now it takes like $13 million. Part of the currency appreciate also. And because you're building highways in difficult terrain, so that's why it costs a whole lot more. But on the other hand, in those areas, the highway does not generate the same economic benefit. So you have a squeeze. Your cost is up, your benefit is down, the investment efficiency is down, your economy slows down. So that's what I mean by too much of a good thing. So the highway is one example. The other is you look at the electricity system. China started out like 20 years ago with very little. Then now China's the electricity system is also 30% bigger than the United States. And we have overcapacity. But China is still adding like a lot every year. The reason is because we have many companies making equipment. We have many companies who do the construction. These people have got to have something to do. So in the sense that the government says that we have to keep it going now, you must give them something to do. So basically, China, if without some political change, China's this build model will keep going until the people who are doing it are too old to work. So that's how this story is going to end. You see, I think that a lot of things we see in the society are due to generational. It's very difficult to tell the guys who've been building for the last 20 years. You have to stop. Then the guy says, "What I'm going to do," right? So China's infrastructure spending is just tremendous. It's about 20% of GDP. It's over $2 trillion every year. And Donald Trump is talking about what? $1 trillion over how many years? 10 years. It's basically nothing, right? China is building infrastructure at the speed of creating one United States every decade. And that pace is still accelerating. So that doesn't make sense anymore, you see. That doesn't make sense anymore. The foreign economy, China is still investing close to 50% of GDP. And the personal disposable income is only 46% of GDP. So that's by far the lowest in the world, 46%, and for any major economy. So basically, China is the problem with China is trapped in this dynamic. Just people don't know what another way to live their life. Chinese people work like nowhere else you see people working so hard. It's Japanese people, like sometimes you hear stories, Japanese people work themselves to death. A few work themselves to death. Chinese people are better. They work more and they don't die. So 90% of the women in China work. That's higher than the ratio for men in the West. And the Chinese when Chinese old people, they retire, what do? They look after their grandchildren. So everybody in China is working. And if you don't consume, the whole world will blow up because nobody is going to buy your stuff. So this is sort of what I see is that with the China's political change, that the political dynamic it's very difficult to change. 5 years ago, when the new government came, the Chinese government is not exactly new. You have a new top guys, but the people down there are all the same. So that's where they were talking about a change. Then 2 to 3 years later, then no change. So those days we keep doing the same thing. But because why you're building these things, you don't need it. We will need that eventually. That's the argument now. So all this financial system reflects the real economy. So if you are building stuff that is not useful today, you're surely going to have bad loans. Yeah, you're surely going to have bad loans. So all those other things that are financial markets, China has a big property bubble. Last year, the property sales rose by 35% in the primary market, reaching 15% of GDP. And in China, the property sales, 60% of the proceeds go to the government because of land and taxes. So the property market is really a revenue source for the government. So when the property sales go up, the governments have money, then they spend on infrastructure, then the economy goes up. So this is where, in the last 5 years, the economy is highly correlated with the property market. It's not because the property market per se is generating so much GDP. Yes, it is. But property construction in China is only 1/3 of their sales price is property construction. So in terms of GDP impact, it's much less, right? It's really the revenue impact. But if you sell a lot of property to the people, they have less money to spend on consumption. So consumption becomes even smaller. So you're becoming more and more out of balance. So this is sort of I think that China's model is running into trouble. I don't know how this thing is going to end. One thing is like because when people saw the economy was not sustainable, they start taking money out. So the currency started to depreciate. China is running $500 billion trade surplus, and the currency is depreciating. This is crazy. But the reason is because people with money think that the economic model is not sustainable. If you do something like that, the financial system one day will be in trouble. Then you print money to bail out the financial system. Then the currency will go down. So Chinese people are very clever. They look forward. It's not like Japanese people. When Japanese banking system was bad, Japanese did not take the money out. Japanese people, they like, I would say, Japanese people like the people on Titanic. They listen to the music. They go down with the ship. So Chinese like when they see, the ship is moving, let's go. So that's why China suddenly they closed the capital account. Now you cannot take the money out. That's where Chinese government is different. Chinese government is not. There's no check and balance in China. The government can't do anything right. One day you're free, next day you're not so free. Chinese economic model is based on something called the bird cage model. It was the 1980s when China started reforming the economy. Bird cage, freedom is only within a cage. Okay, so when the government feels comfortable, they make the cage very large. So when it can become so large, you think the cage is not there anymore. So you think, you're free, I'm a free bird. Then the government says, gee, you guys... Then the government says, whoa, it's dangerous. Then they move the cage back, and then you say, whoa, what's going on? I cannot move my elbows. So that's where we are. So, but I think this economic model has run its course. And China should become, I'm considered China bear because I always point out of the problems. So the Chinese government says that, why are you always talking about the problems? That's what an economist is supposed to do, talk about the problems. Otherwise, why should it be an economist, right? But, China should be, the economy should be bigger than the U.S. today. I expected it 20 years ago. But when I went to the U.S., I saw America is in a really lucky country. America has many advantages. They have Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and Wall Street, and so forth, and a strong military. But on average, Americans are not so well educated. And they do not work as hard as the people in Asia. How could they enjoy $56,000 per capita income? It's very unusual. I don't see that's sustainable in the long run. So when Chinese people work, why their per capita income is only $8,000? Doesn't make sense. And American companies say Chinese workers are more productive than American workers, doing the same thing. So this is where I see China's model is needs to change. China needs to do two things. One is to change the model from OEM to you are doing your own things. The Chinese companies need to do R&D and to become a normal companies, not OEM companies, always looking for somebody for a contract. Is always looking for contract. Stop doing that. And you do your own things. And the Chinese government should stop supporting this OEM stuff. Chinese companies should move up the value chain and to go to the top. Then Chinese currency will rise. That currency is very important. Japanese currency started when they started developing was 360 to the US dollar. When it peaked, it was 120. So the currency tripled. So most of the upside in Japanese living standard was due to currency appreciation. While Chinese currency started at 1.5 to the dollar, devalued all the way to 10 to 1 in 1993. Then when the Premier Zhu Rongji came, Zhu Rongji had a hard money policy. Any developing country that talks about currency depreciation will not succeed. Premier Zhu Rongji came and said, our wages are so low, why should we devalue the currency? That's very different from what economists say. Economists say, hey, we have a trade deficit. Our inflation is high, so we should devalue the currency. That is the wrong way of thinking. The right way of thinking is to say our wages are low. Why should we devalue the currency? And if we are not competitive, there must be a lot of inefficiencies in our economy. So we should reform, not devalue. Yeah? So China was, for a long time, China was not doing that. And when Zhu Rongji came, in about a decade, Zhu Rongji changed all that. Hard currency policy. Hard currency policy. Companies must be competitive or you're out. So the economy boom. Any developing country wants to rise must have a hard currency policy to force companies to perform. If you give them an easy time out, you will always be poor. So any country that is always devaluing the currency is not stable, it will never rise. So that's sort of you look at a country like in Latin America, 100 years ago, all rich countries. Now they are poor countries now. Why? Always printing money. Monetary policy, economists love to talk about the monetary stimulus. Monetary stimulus is a poison. It's a drug. It's like a cocaine. You feel good for a short period of time, but your health goes down over time. So any country is run by monetary policy will go down, including the United States. So never let an economist like me run the country. That is the wrong way to always ask engineers to rise to the top. Yeah. This is I think that so then after Zhu Rongji left, China went back to this monetary printing money, and at that time printing money not in the inflation side, it was in the property side. Because Chinese people are opportunistic. They're always looking for upside. So the government is playing with the people. You have money, You want to play? How about a property? How about stocks? So people get in because these asset markets in China are really instruments of the government to tax the people. So people always lose, right? Then they lose, they cannot consume. So the economy is basically does not have consumption to support it. So China is a key thing. Well, I mentioned the corporate strategy cannot be OEM. It needs to shift towards do your own thing. In terms of macro strategy, you shift away from taking money away from the people and give them the money to consume. Then you create a new virtuous cycle. It's basically you have a capital formation by independent companies to anticipate a household demand. And that efficiency is higher, then you can have a virtuous cycle. So consumption is so low. Chinese economy, China has the best infrastructure in the world. Education is similar to that in the West. There's no reason why China shouldn't be a $20,000, $25,000 per capita income country. That should happen very quickly. So all it takes for China is to rebalance the economy. And that involves shrink the government. That is a politically difficult thing. Now we are moving the other direction. You hear a lot of people they are worried about China's strategic intentions, and China is doing this, that, and that. But all that things I think are not important. If China's economy doubles, people are all going to be. China will become the largest economy in the world. People are all going to be friendly to China. No, there's no need for China to pay people to say nice things to China. That's what China is doing, you see. They're always giving money to this guy, that guy, then people say nice things to you. But there's no need to do that. When China becomes the largest economy in the world and largest import market in the world, then people are nice to you without you asking them. So that will happen automatically. So this is sort of one way or another, it's going to happen. China has to go down that path. One way or another, it's going to happen. Does it happen? I was hopeful 5 years ago. I thought China would change in 2 to 3 years' time. But over time, I've become more pessimistic. I think that the property bubble keeps expanding. But if China has a crisis, it's a good thing. China's reforms are driven by crisis. And if you have a crisis, then people take a step back and they say, oh, this is not sustainable. Without a crisis, that's a bad thing because you drag it out, right? So this is where I have a very different view from a lot of people who worried about it. Will China have a financial crisis or not? China is not about a potential. China is about not wasting money. If you don't waste money, the country will rise. Yeah. So now it happens in 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. I don't know, but it has to happen. So in foreseeable future, China will become import superpower, not just export superpower. So that will be a very positive thing for all other countries. We should hope China to change. And even Donald Trump, I think, is not bad. And if Donald Trump puts more pressure on China, actually, it could be a catalyst for change. Why not? 15 years ago, Premier Zhu Rongji used joining the WTO to change China. The reason because he was telling the people, we want to join the WTO, right? We have to change. That's the way. You have to change it to join the WTO. So that was a very good strategy. Now, Donald Trump could be very good. A lot of Chinese say, oh, we don't have to change. Why? If the U.S. starts trade war, the U.S. will get hurt too. So in this kind of bilateral relationship, if something bad happens, both get hurt. So it's very difficult to predict the outcome. But only if a madman could make it convincing. No, Donald Trump walks up and he looks mad. So he could do something that's crazy. So that could be the catalyst for change in China, right? I think so. That's sort of I think that right now it's very uncertain. I think that the future there's a lot of upside. And lastly, I think that on India it's like 15 years ago when the government invited me over to talk about China. They said, what's China's secret? I said, 3 words. Invest, invest, invest. Then the government said, all the people in the Indian government are very smart. A lot of them went to Harvard. Usually a country led by a Harvard guy usually goes down, all these guys very smart. They said, you're going to have a financial crisis. You're going to have a financial crisis. I said, yes, we have financial crisis. But we first go from ground level to 100th floor. Then we have financial crisis. We drop to 80th floor. You see? Then we do something else. But if you do not invest, you're always stuck on the ground level. So this is where I think that my view of India is always the same. Don't look at economic development as normal economics, like listen to companies that want to maximize profits or all this stuff. Economic development is about it's a building project. It's whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, mobilize resources to build the country because you know what you need. There's no need for the market because you need to build cities, you need to build highways, you need to build railroads, and there's no need for the market. You know what you need. You need to mobilize your resources to do it. So forget about the profits. You see. So that is something that a lot of business people may unwilling to listen. But that's what happened in the United States in the 19th century. All these boom-bust cycles, these Austrian school of economics, boom-bust cycles. Not very good for investors, actually, but the country was built. So this is where I hope that the new order in the world is from the U.S. consumer as the anchor for the global economy to a new order in the world is investment-led growth in India, consumption-led growth in China. That's the new world order.
Thank you, Andy. So that was the fiery, passionate dragon indicating to the slow elephant which way to place the next foot. So invest, 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 and at the same time you've encouraged the people of China to have more disposable income and be able to expand the consumer base and hence create